Wrestling with Faith.
Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Faith. I think this is going to be a little bit of a special episode because I'd like to introduce you to my new partner in crime in regards to Wrestling with Faith, Marcus Cornett, who's been a friend of mine for years and is almost a little bit of a wrestling historian, as well as a man who is deep in the studies of his own theology. Marcus, why don't you tell our friends at home a little bit about yourself?
All right. Hey, guys. My name is Marcus. Like Bill said, we've known each other for a long time. I trained a little bit in the art of professional wrestling.
He's trying to say I crushed his dreams. That's what he's trying to say.
My body crushed my dreams. But yeah, we met over a decade ago. And shared a love of professional wrestling, and now have a bond as brothers in Christ. Like I said, I call myself a wrestling nerd. I go deep on things that interest me. So wrestling and faith go hand in hand when it comes to that. Almost bottomless wells of information. So I'm a ordained minister through my church, and preach here and there. I lead a young adult ministry along with my wife, and just love the Lord, love talking and preaching and just telling people about the Bible, about faith, about God. And you give me a chance, I'll talk your ear off about wrestling. So this is a great pairing.
Yeah, it is a great pairing, and I think it's particularly useful because, as Marcus had mentioned, he's an ordained minister at his church, and those are qualifications that I don't have. I am more of a self-taught for the past, I don't know, 30 whatever years. So I've never gotten ordained, but I have a great respect for the process that he went through, and the information that he brings is a little bit more scholarly than say what I bring. But I'd like to think I'll bring plenty of nuggets of wisdom and years of digging to kind of help on the theology front. But I think a major part of this is that we're wrestling with faith, which is to say that I never promised to come here with all the answers. I came here to help wrestle through the difficult theological questions, to embrace our love for professional wrestling and our love for theology, and to try to dig in until we can, find the truth, which I believe, as Marcus does, is Christ and the biblical truths. And a lot of people that will come across this will want to argue that, and okay, I was a wrestling heel for a long time, I can take the heat. Marcus just recently went to AEW last night, so why don't you tell us a little bit? Let's dig a little bit into the wrestling side of things and what you got to experience at Dynamite.
Yeah. So I attended the Dynamite taping last night in Asheville, North Carolina. I gotta say, AEW puts on a great show. The beautiful thing about wrestling is you can experience it on TV, but there's something different about live professional wrestling.
Yeah,
and to be at a TV taping in my hometown is it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So, we got the full TV deal. The stage, the lights, the music.
the pyro.
And what surprised me about the presentation was the pyro, that they were able to have pyro in the Harris Cherokee Center.
Yeah, well, when you're Tony Khan, you have the money for the insurance. You know what I'm saying?
Right? Yeah. Got a little fire insurance. But, my dad was a firefighter for nearly 30 years with Asheville Fire Department. And he's always told me for years that indoor pyrotechnics were against fire code. And unless something's changed, I don't know, but I was like shocked the first pyro ball that went up, and Edge got the full, or Adam Copeland, excuse me, got the full pyro. But it was a great show. It was a great presentation. The matches were spectacular. AEW um, has some of the best wrestlers
In the
in the
world.
business, in the world. Um, I don't get tribal when it comes to AEW or WWE or TNA or whatever. I love wrestling. I love
Yeah.
wrestling for what it is. Um, AEW and WWE have different products, but the as far as the in ring action, it was great. You didn't see a lot of you know rest holds when we knew there was a commercial break. It wasn't just holding a headlock for 3 minutes or working the crowd. It was the those guys still go. Those guys and girls give it their all. Um, but the show opened with the 10-man tag, uh,
Man, 10-man
which
tag.
which
How things
is
have changed.
I I don't. You could probably maybe speak to this, but logistically, I don't know how you put a match like that together. And they went for a while. It was a long match. It wasn't just, hey, Adam Copeland's in his hometown. Let's have him show up and work some guys. Those guys busted their butts. Great,
Yeah.
great
Uh,
spots. High spots. There was psychology. Um, you knew why, at least in the scope of the match, you knew why everything was happening. Because a lot of times we see in definitely modern pro wrestling, a lot of guys just do spots for the sake of the spot.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
they'll
Yeah. Well,
do,
it's not just modern wrestling. I mean, this has happened like ever since I've been involved in the business, which is, now it's like almost 20 years ago, and even before then, vets on shoot interviews were like, guys are just hitting the spots. They hit the spots. Like it takes a while when you get into the business to convert from understanding that it's not about the move, it's about how you affect the audience.
yeah.
And figuring that out can take a while for a lot of guys
And a lot of the guys that have, like the Young Bucks
and
were,
gals.
yeah, the guys and girls. The Young Bucks were in that 10-man tag, and they have historically gotten some heat for being spot monkeys.
Spot monkeys. I love the term spot monkey.
Oh yeah, it's great. For just hitting topes and different dives and different just super kicks right and left. I mean, they own the fact that it's super kick part A or whatever it is, but doing just spots for the sake of spots. But you could see there was psychology in the match of they were setting up a lot of things for the next high spot, the next big spot, but there was storytelling like the before Copeland got tagged in the first time. I mean, we were just screaming, "We want Edge! We want Edge! Or we want Cope!" I gotta not call him Edge.
I mean, you can't go 20 years of the business and then just shake it. Like, for
Yeah,
legal reasons he had to change it. But like if he was on the show now, I'm sure he'd be like, it's fine, brother. Like
yeah,
don't sweat it. But the one thing that I want to jump on is the energy you talked about. When you watch professional wrestling, you feel the energy, but when you're there, you are that energy and you're
yeah,
part of that energy. And that is
yeah.
a different experience altogether. So
And what the television audience doesn't see, between commercial breaks, between matches, the ring announcer Justin Roberts, he talked to the crowd the whole time. There was no dead air um, for us. There wasn't like, oh, we're just going to watch a promotional package for the merch stand or something. Um, but he work the crowd, get everybody hyped, and do a countdown. He did a
mhm.
live countdown of, hey, we're back on in 5, 4, 3, and we're popping.
Yeah, because they get the energy is the product.
Yeah, definitely. And the professional wrestling fans, the crowd, are as much part of the show as anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I
And
left during the pandemic because that energy was gone,
right,
and
and a
it
lot of the
changes it.
folks would say during that pandemic era, when at least on TV there was no crowd, um, it was just quiet. You don't. There's
It
no
was
feedback.
surreal. It was
There's no feedback of the crowd will tell you if they like that spot, they like that move, they like what you're doing. But without a crowd and without a energetic crowd, without an invested crowd, um, it's I think the product and the performance suffers. Um, so to have a big energy feel in that arena just made the show even better. Um, so we move on, and we get Brian Cage uh, returning to face for the TNT title, and that guy is so big.
uh yeah, and talented.
He's very talented. I've watched him for years. I watched him in NWA, and then to TNA and
Yeah.
to Impact or Dynamite. But having him come back, but that guy is just he's he is bigger in real life than
Yeah.
on TV. A
Sure.
lot of guys look bigger on TV
Uh-huh.
than they do in real life. Now that you could see the muscles on top of the muscles.
Yeah. No, he's
Uh,
he's a specimen. He's a
yeah,
specimen for sure.
yeah. If they book him right and if he stays healthy, he can go far. Him and like the big guys. There always has to be a place for big guys, for the super heavyweights in professional wrestling.
Yeah, I like to think that there's a place for everybody in professional wrestling.
Yeah,
It just, it depends on what that place is,
right.
and how it's executed. Um, but yeah,
And
100%.
we've seen, over the last several years, a shift away from, WWE and WWF was always known as the land of the giants. And we've seen a shift more towards the smaller, more athletically built guys and girls. We obviously had that with WCW and the cruiserweights, and WWE had their cruiserweights, but now that athletic style, the high flying, technical type wrestling is more accepted because as the time goes, the average fan is smarter to the product.
So I'm gonna interject here for a moment, and I'm gonna say two quick things. One, Samoa Joe and TNA's X division doesn't get enough credit in being part of the bridge, which really hybrided the entire subject. That big guys can high fly too. Like
Yeah,
I know that Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow had like moonsaults, but Samoa Joe took it to a different level with his planchas and suicide dives and so forth. He acted like a cruiserweight, even though he's a heavyweight. And the X division kind of was part of that evolution. And I think that's important and should be said. Um, so I
absolutely.
just I just wanted to throw that out there as well and kind of give TNA their dues and being part of the evolution of the sport. But then the other thing is attention span. Because as much as I'm enjoying doing the long form interviews that we're doing, eventually we'll be cutting into doing some reels and some shorts and whatnot because our society is feeding off of very short, like 90 seconds, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. And I understand WWE's trying to experiment that with the speed. I don't know if that's necessarily going to hit the spot that they're looking for. I don't know. But what I do know is that attention span is different than it was. Netflix, I don't know if you know this or have heard this or not, but like Matt Damon was on an interview in one of the recent movies that he and Ben Affleck reunited and dropped on Netflix. And he said like Netflix is trying to get the writers to drop like not the log line, but basically like the premise or goal of the movie like 3 or 4 times because they anticipate that their audience is on their phone while they're
Mhm.
watching the movie. Like the attention span is just not there anymore to sit there and watch a 2 hour movie without checking your phone, getting on your socials, doing whatever.
Right.
So just not to overtake your conversation, but to share like that attention span is it's changed and our sport has to change with it. And
Right.
long sleeper holds and long headlocks are not going to keep the audience anymore.
I remember it was one of the first house shows for WWE I ever went to. And the main event was Triple H and Ric Flair. And this
Yeah.
is in the Evolution days. They're part of Evolution,
Love
but
that group.
they 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 did a promo and something and ended up they were facing each other. And my dad was with me at the show. I was a kid. My dad's not a big pro wrestling guy, but he took me to 2 WrestleManias and took me to my first wrestling show, which was ECW back in the day. For a probably 6-year-old, wasn't the best. But what I'm getting at, that match, they went an hour
Yeah.
in a house show, and the majority of it was headlocks, arm bars.
Yeah.
It
Wrestles.
was it was a slow match. They eventually got there. They got their stuff in. But that kind of match I don't think flies as well today.
Not
You know,
not anymore. Not
you look
anymore.
at the the Iron Man match that Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had at, what was it, WrestleMania 11?
Mm, I I
One of them.
thought it was 10, but you might be right. It might be 11. I
Yeah.
think you probably have a better memory than I do. Yeah,
I've taken a few
I have
less chair shots.
too many bumps. But I'm familiar with the Iron Man that you're talking about, and it was a great match. And you go back as a fan or a wrestling fan and watch it. But I can tell you right now, as a wrestling fan who is a 43-year-old adult, uh, I probably wouldn't watch that whole match without checking my phone
Yeah, yeah, and especially
anymore. You know?
that match in particular had no pinfalls. There were
Yeah.
no falls in that match, and they went an additional 20 minutes after the 1 hour ran out.
Right.
So
When there was pinfall for the finish though, right?
I think it went to time, and then
Well, because it went to
they had to
sudden death,
restart because there was no
and
fall.
then Shawn Michaels rolled up Bret
Yeah,
Hart to win the championship at the
yeah,
sudden death.
yeah, and the boyhood dream has come true.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, to your point, the attention span is not as it as much as it was
Yeah.
there.
It's different. It's different for sure.
So yeah, the product does change with times. It's influenced by all sorts of things, television, different television shows, uh, real world happenings, and you see guys, at least in their ring gear, being paying homage to video games and Power Rangers and anime and different
Yeah,
things.
and
Shout
comic
out
books
New
and all
Day.
that. Yeah.
But back to Dynamite last night. And we get to the main event, right? It's Darby Allin and Takeshita.
Yeah.
It'd been a solid show. I mean, the crowd giving it their all. Nobody in that arena sat down for that entire match.
Yeah.
We were
Because
all on our
they
feet
know their audience. Yep.
because that was a spectacular professional wrestling match. A lot. Darby gets a lot of heat for not looking the part,
Killing himself.
for
Yeah.
killing himself,
For
for being
killing
a spot
himself.
monkey, for being a stunt man.
Yeah, no, because he absorbs the kind of damage that is almost supernatural. That's really
Yeah,
what it comes down to.
I mean, he was bleeding from the mouth within 3 minutes of the bell. I mean, he took a beating. He took a blue thunder bomb from the top rope of, and Takeshita's on the apron. He had Darby sitting on the top rope, and he took a blue thunder bomb from the um,
Blue Thunder Bomb
apron
from the apron,
to
right?
the
Straight
floor.
to the ground. Yeah,
Yeah,
I saw clips of it. I'm gonna try to watch Dynamite tonight, but I did see
yeah,
some clips,
yeah.
including
It was a
the
hard
German
bump.
suplex.
That
That was a
that German
bridge.
suplex, I thought Darby was dead because the way I could see the rotation, and if Darby had kept rotating as he was and didn't flatten himself out, he'd have landed on his head and neck.
Yeah, that's
But
that's
Darby is good at telling a story of the underdog fighting from below, punching up, fighting
yeah,
out of his weight.
yeah,
But I think that's the great thing about Darby Allin. He can take a butt kicking,
yeah.
but he's not the Spike Dudley that's going to take some really hard bumps and take that butt kicking. But Darby finds a way.
Yeah, and he's coming out on top. No, it sounds like an excellent show. So I got two things I want to try to squeeze in here before the show is up, and I want to get your opinion on because John Cena made the announcement as far as WWE is concerned in doing this
The John
generational
Cena,
show.
the
Yeah,
classic.
yeah, thank you, John Cena Classic. And I've seen a lot of heat. I mean, like instant, and I know it because like no matter what the WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, doesn't matter. Street Fighter movies coming out, Mortal Kombat movie comes out, like people just start trashing things before they even see it.
Right.
It's just the culture where it's very toxic. But the negative was like they were like, well, what's the point in having a match? So I'm gonna rant for just a second. I'm gonna get your feedback, and then we're gonna set a subject for the community of wrestling and faith to kind of talk about to kind of build up towards one of the next conversations. But I think people are missing the point here. The internet wrestling community has spent years just complaining about everything. Triple H books it wrong. This guy should have won. This guy should have done this. This guy should have had the championship. WWE is giving you now the chance to right those wrongs in this one scenario. And this test is going to determine, I think, really a lot about the future of what WWE and TKO is going to look at in regards to the show. Because if just throwing names out there, not to get too deep into it, but let's say Obafemi destroys Braun Breaker, and you're a Braun Breaker guy, and you think Braun Breaker should have won it. You have the chance to go in and say, he put on a great show. I want to vote for him as the champion. You get the power now as the fan to do that, to decide who's the champion. So the match outcome really matters less than what they show you in the ring to get you to connect with them and decide who you think should win. So now you as the internet wrestling community finally have that opportunity and you don't want it. And that's my perspective on it. And I think people should just take a moment and just let's see what it is. Let's see how the matches are and let's see what it's like when you who have never been in the ring, never taken a chop, never taken a bump, think you can book it better. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see what you can do. So I just love your thoughts on that for just a couple minutes, and then we'll transition to our
Yeah.
theological debate for the next month.
Right. So yeah, I'm with you on that. The IWC just they'll find a way to complain about literally anything.
Shouldn't have bumped that way.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
they have um, a way of finding the negative in everything, and it's because of the power of the internet. Everybody has a voice, and everybody's voice is valid. Uh, but no, I think the John Cena Classic is gonna be a good thing, and there's also some potential pitfalls for them. There's been a debate over forever about wins versus losses in wrestling. Does a win matter? Does a loss matter? Um, so we have a potential pitfall there of saying, yeah, this guy won. He was dominant in this tournament, but he didn't win.
Right. So
But
while I see your point in the potential pitfall, I'm going to answer with does it matter to you? Because that's really what matters. Because it's
right,
never mattered to the WWE books for
no,
decades at this
no, it
point.
hasn't.
Even
It
when
really
Vince
has.
was running, it didn't really matter, right? It was all about momentum, fan response, and really at the end of the day, merchandise sales, which
Right.
is how you tell them who you like. And now you have another way to tell them. So I see the point. I just don't think it's going to be valid enough to stop what is the future of professional wrestling. I think in that the internet wrestling community is going to demand more power and they're going to
Mhm.
test models until they find a balance of their booking and ultimate control in your involvement.
Yeah, and another point too is WWE, to what you were saying, is going to get real time feedback
Yes.
on
Yes.
the booking. Usually we do get, if somebody loses that, the majority of the crowd should have won, think should have won. That
Yep.
is a, they'll get boos, they'll get chants. Um, but no, I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it depends on how they book it,
Yep.
um, the um, the way the matches play out, and ultimately the outcome is going to be based on the particular wrestler's performance.
Yeah.
You can have a 5-star classic, but there's a winner and a loser in that. But that the loser of that match was still a part and 50%, at least in ring wise, of that 5-star classic.
Yeah, so it's gonna be we're gonna talk about that more as the days come as we start analyzing the classic as it takes place. So as we move towards the close, I want to do two things. I want to welcome once more Marcus Cornett as part of the official Wrestling with Faith um, podcast team. And I want to just kind of pose the question to anybody watching now and anybody involved in our socials, to the community, which is what are your thoughts in reference to on a theological conversation, UFOs and the UFO disclosure and how that connects to your theology. And very specifically, in the past week, having several pastors come out and say that they were brought to not a secret meeting, but a closed meeting where government officials were telling them we're going to be rolling out a lot of information. It's going to challenge your flock's faith. You need to be ready for it. And that's kind of the message that's coming across. A lot of us have already kind of prepared for this in the idea that our theology states interdimensional beings, angels, demons, fallen angels, the sort. What are your thoughts? Do you think there's a connection? Don't you think there's a connection? And how deep do you think down the rabbit hole you go? So, Marcus, do you have any closing thoughts on that to kind of rile up
Yeah,
the
I
community
mean,
to begin their fight, their
yeah,
wrestling match?
with all this information coming out, where do we stand in our faith? Does the existence of extraterrestrial beings change how we view God, how we view salvation? Um, so this is the things that we have to wrestle with, interpersonally, and as a capital C church.
Correct.
So there's a book I want to recommend real quick at the end. It's called The Unseen Realm.
By Dr. Michael Heiser. Yeah,
Yes, I love that book.
highly recommended.
Yes, highly recommended. Um, Goes into a lot of things that most uh, casual Christians don't think about.
Yeah,
But
so definitely get in touch with that book. Hit us in the comments here, Wrestle with Faith on Instagram. Tell us what you think and join us next time at Wrestling with Faith.
see you guys.